Welcome to Bridgwater, our small yet incredible town located in Somerset. Before visiting, you would never imagine just how rich its history is. We're going to take you around some of the key locations specially selected by young people for you. Keep a lookout for our Did You Know facts that you may be quizzed on at the end. Today, Bridgwater is known for its magnificent illuminated carnival, squibbing, and St Matthew's Fair. We're going to uncover more of its history by showing you some of the buildings and revealing the stories that lie behind them. But first, who exactly is preserving these beautiful artefacts that tell the story of our past? The protection of historic buildings and landmarks in Bridgwater is advocated for by the Bridgwater and District Civic Society. Their aim is to ensure that these fascinating aspects of Bridgwater's history do not get forgotten. Across the town, blue plaques give a brief insight into the history behind each location or building. Today, our town has a population of over 41,000, but records show that it was once just a small village. Did you know that the village and the nearby bridge was given to Walter of Douay by William the Conqueror? It became known as Brig of Walter, Walter's Bridge, and eventually Bridgwater.
Behind me is the oldest surviving structure in all of Bridgwater. This is the Watergate. This is one of the few remaining fragments of an old medieval castle that once stood here. This gate allowed for access to and from the castle for goods and people arriving by boat. Did you know that one of the gates had to be demolished when an elephant got stuck in it? The elephant was part of a touring circus that visited the town in 1798. Bridgwater Castle was built in the early 13th century by the incredibly wealthy William Brewer and had major contributions to the town's development. It later fell into ruin in the 17th century and had a new house built on top of it. Some of the walls survived. These walls played a minor role in the English Civil War and the Monmouth Rebellion.
We're in the Blake Museum, which is situated in Blake Street, Bridgwater. It's the reputed home of Robert Blake, General at Sea to Cromwell. Start off with archaeology, right up through to World War II, then into the transport room, and then we go into the bygones room, which is an eclectic mix, all relating to the Bridgwater and the area. We have what we call the John Chubb collection, which is a series of sketches and paintings. John was born in 1746, died in 1818, and he captured images from all around the town. We know what the town looked like back in those days. Bridgwater used to be a very important port of all manner of goods coming in and going out. They could then moor up, obviously, in the docks. It used to be packed, and it was said that you could get on one side of the docks onto a ship and walk across all the ships to the other side.
At first glance, you would never guess just how much activity used to happen in and around these waterways. Bridgwater originally made cloth and wool, but later on in the 17th century began manufacturing clay bricks and tiles, which were all transported by ships through our docks. In the 1800s, tall-masted ships could sail right up to the town bridge. Bridgwater's businesses grew as a result and helped drive the Industrial Revolution. One of them, led by John Board, pioneered reinforced concrete, which would then later change the world. Behind me is Castle House, the showcase he built to demonstrate the new way of construction. By the mid-1950s, the Port of Bridgwater was employing 80 to 100,000 tonnes of cargo, mainly sand and coal by tonnage, followed by timber and flour. Our docks were at the time more active than Bristol's.
Did you know that Bridgwater was the first town to petition against the slave trade? Millions of African people were taken from their homes to provide cheap labour. Slavery was also used as a punishment for those that might dissent against the crown. In 1685, 849 men from the West Country, including Bridgwater, were sent to the West Indies as punishment for rising up against James II in the Monmouth Rebellion. Behind me is St Mary's Church, which Monmouth reportedly climbed so he could spy on the opposition and plot his failed attack. Did you know that Monmouth escaped and was eventually caught disguised as a woman and was later executed in the Tower of London? There are currently 29 locations marked by blue plaques across the town and surrounding areas by the Bridgwater and District Civic Society.
The history of our town goes much further than the ancient buildings that hold such interesting stories. History is forever being made, and our lives and the built environment are constantly changing right before our eyes. An example of this would be the progression and change in location of our wonderful cinema. Behind me is the Palace. Did you know that this was once a cinema? It was built in 1916 by Miss Madeline Rich and was originally called the Empire. In 1936, another cinema opened in the town, one of the chain of Odeon cinemas. It was designed by a man named Thomas Cecil Howitt. During recent years, the people of Scott Cinema realised that their building was no longer fit for purpose. They were given the opportunity to open a brand new building with a much more practical layout. We hope you've learned some interesting things about Bridgwater that you didn't know before. There's so much more to discover. Come for a visit in person or go online and find out more about the current work of the Bridgwater and District Civic Society. We believe it's important to preserve parts of our history, such as some of the remains of our castle. It serves as a reminder of where we have come from and how significant our small town once was. Bridgwater is truly a wonderful place.